My name is Margaret Lefton, and since graduating from Skidmore, I've worked at Victoria's Secret, Cava, Tory Burch, traveled the world, been a food photographer in-house at restaurants, trained as a therapist, ran membership clubs for top entrepreneurs in the world, and now write and host for Shopify's YouTube channel, plus produce YouTube's first late-night TV show. And all of this is thanks to a secret and mindset skill I learned at Skidmore that I'm gonna share a little later in this video. Whether you're a parent wondering where a liberal arts degree actually leads to in the real world, or a prospective student with no idea what you want to do with your life, I was in the exact same position my senior year. I had no idea where I wanted to go. Stick around. Truth be told, until I got to Skidmore, I'd actually always hated school. And after Skidmore and through the rest of my life, there is nothing I value more than education. By the end of this video, you'll know if you want to call yourself a Skid kid. But my first day at Skidmore, I was actually really intimidated. I was a sophomore transfer student coming into a new school, and I took a huge risk leaving all the friends I'd already made my freshman year in hopes of finding somewhere that I just felt a little bit more of a sense of belonging. I had a history of hiding how nerdy and artsy I was to fit in, and I really wasn't excited to start over and have to learn how to adapt again to fit in a new environment. So you can imagine my surprise the first afternoon after orientation when I sat at a table of students in a huge debate about what Harry Potter house they'd be in, whether they were trying out for Skidmore's Quidditch Club, and what Disney-themed tattoo they wanted to get. I thought, oh my God, I'm finally home. Skidmore is a place that emphasizes creativity and community, a place where you're allowed to not have it figured out and to be out of the box. You can try things and have permission to not be normal. That first week, another transfer friend and I decided to try out for nearly every single club on campus. I embarrassed myself through drumming on trash cans trying to get into Pulse, a drumming club based on found objects. I rolled around on the floor of an auditorium pretending to be a smoothie for an improv group. Blending. And while we walked toward the Quidditch tryouts, honestly, we totally ran away. You're a wizard, Harry! Skidmore was different than any place I'd ever been, and it felt like living in a real-life High School Musical episode. The lacrosse captain was a sculptor, the soccer player also was a poet, and all the girls had crushes on the leading men of one of the school's a cappella groups, the Bandersnatchers. To be totally honest, like I said, until I got to Skidmore, I honestly always hated school. I went to a boarding school for high school. I never really connected with the material really deeply, and I didn't really understand why I was there. And then I took my first art class. Entering the studio building on campus was pure magic. I can still remember it so clearly. Peeking into each room, you saw a completely different medium and students immersed in a flow state coming up with things I'd never seen before, from jewelry making to woodworking. We had like a digital art class where people were coding crazy artistic websites, photography labs, and it's where I personally fell in love with the textiles studio. A studio full of rainbow threads of all shapes, sizes, and textures. It was honestly really scary to admit I wanted to be an art major, given how I'd grown up. I was terrified to tell my parents, and I was so sure coming in that I was just gonna continue my plan of being an English major. But that's what Skidmore will do to you. It will help you get out of your comfort zone and help you fall in love with parts of yourself that you didn't even know existed before. I finally fell in love with learning, and I woke up excited to go to class every single day. Because the truth is, while I was technically majoring in studio art, the reality is I was actually majoring in creative thought, which leads me to the secret and the mindset that I'm talking about. Creative thought matters, or as Skid kids will call it, CTM. I promise this isn't like a cheesy phrase or a tagline. I was sitting in a geology class, think rocks, minerals, tectonic plates, and my professor assigned us an art project, not as extra credit, just as the actual assignment. She wanted us to feel how the earth moves to understand the poetry of it, not just memorize it. And to complete my history requirement, I, no joke, took a class on the history of stand-up comedy through time, learning about power and politics through people who made us laugh and maybe got censored for it over the years.
If that matters. I was like, good gracious, ass, bodacious, flirtatious, trying to show.
Every single class at Skidmore taught me about the subject on the surface, but really underneath, it was teaching me how to think, how to approach problems sideways, how to connect dots that people who think linearly will just never see, how to sit in the uncomfortable place of not knowing the answer yet and trusting that the interesting idea is still coming. Didn't realize it at the time, but Skidmore was training me for a life that doesn't follow a straight line, which is really good because mine definitely didn't. So I CTM'd my life. I graduated as a studio art major with a textiles concentration, and I moved to New York City, completely sure I'd work in fashion and marketing and live in New York forever. I got my first internship actually through Skidmore's career department. I worked at a big agency called Grey Group in the city that summer. And then from there moved on to Victoria's Secret and realized I just wasn't happy. I didn't love the industry, and I didn't love New York City, the two things I'd been certain of. I was working on the photo team at Victoria's Secret. I was like, this is the dream, right? Now, a linear thinker would have said, push through, this is the path, just stay in fashion. But then I thought about what had come from thinking that I wanted to be an English major and shifting that over to study art. And I decided to follow that same path again, CTMing it. I thought about the textile studio and sitting at the loom with 100 different colored threads next to me. And no one ever told you what order to use them in, right? You were making up the pattern as you go. You had to feel your way into it. And I realized that's what life is. So I pulled a thread I absolutely never expected. I moved to DC, a place I never thought I'd live, to a neighborhood that I found that reminded me a lot of Saratoga Springs, in case you're curious, Adams Morgan. And I talked my way into a job as a food photographer for a restaurant group. I had no formal photography training. I think I'd taken 2 classes at Skidmore, but I also knew how to learn sideways, and that was the Skidmore in me. And that pattern kept repeating. Someone offered me the chance to travel abroad and run a retreat program, and I said yes, having never run retreats in my life. The pandemic hit, and I spent a year living nomadically, even alone on an island 30 miles out to sea studying meditation. I went to grad school for therapy. I got pulled out of that program because a company poached me to build wellness programming for entrepreneurs. And now I write and host for Shopify's YouTube channel, one of the biggest companies in the world. And I produce YouTube's first late night TV show. None of that was part of the plan. None of it, okay? I thought I was gonna be a creative director in fashion forever. All of it was Creative Thought Matters. All of it was using creative thought to design a life and move with the threads of life. And I'm definitely not the only one. Going to Skidmore is living a unique, multi-passionate, creative life that will be so filled and rich. So I want you guys to see that. Let's hear from some of my Skidmore friends and alumni.
Hi, my name is Sarah Ryan. I am an actress and immersive theater creator. I am a sales lead and a project manager. I am a summer camp professional and teaching artist, where I teach anything from mythology to communication skills to knitting and theater and back again.
Hi, I'm Dr. Lindsay Conley. I am a clinical psychologist, a neuropsychologist, dog mom, francophile, lover of Nantucket, and an enthusiast of Jim Morrison.
I'm walking with Joanne, a Skidmore alumni who I met at a dinner last week. Can you tell me about your theory on education and Creative Thought Matters?
I love Skidmore. And for me, education is teaching you about beauty and finding the soulful things in your life. And thank you, Skidmore, because you did it for me.
Okay, so what does this all mean for you? So I wish someone had told me when I was younger, you really don't need to know what you want to be. I felt like there was all this pressure to know what school I wanted to go to, what career path I wanted to take, what I wanted to major in before I even applied to colleges. But that's something you figure out by being in process and trying things. I transferred in from another college with a plan to major in English, and I ended up instead sitting at a floor loom on the studio surrounded by 100 rainbow threads until 4 in the morning, watching Archer and making patterns for 3 years. Now, if you're a parent, don't be scared off by that. The weaving major and being able to talk about what I learned from it is what landed me every major 6-figure job I've gotten. Seriously, people in interviews are like, you majored in what? You're a basket weaver? Creative thinking is the most employable skill in the entire world right now, especially in this landscape of AI and tech and everything changing. People want people who can think out of the box. And that is why Skidmore is a mainstay institution. This is why it is so magical, because that's what they were teaching 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. This is what Skidmore is all about. So if you're a student confused about what you want, looking for a place to express yourself, to find belonging, to feel joy, what you need isn't a school that hands you a plan. You need a place that teaches you how to think, so you can navigate every weird turn that life throws at you with joy and creativity instead of panic. That's what Skidmore gave me: a creative brain and the comfort to make my whole life an art project. I always say I'm an art school kid for life. At the late night show I produce on, there is a group of 25 of us who are up till sometimes 1, 2 in the morning, creating a creative vision together. And I'm like, this is what being an art school kid is. We're all up in the studio, just like I was at Skidmore, midnight, 1, 2 in the morning, making stuff together, playing music, and just having a good time, learning what it means to be creative. So get nerdy, be weird, be yourself, confuse and amaze people around you forever. Because if your college experience looks like this, the rest of your life might look like this. If this video makes sense to you, if you feel that warm, fuzzy feeling watching this, you already know where you belong. I will see you on campus, Skid Kid. I'm Margaret Lefton, class of 2015, and I am so proud to be a Skidmore alumni. Now I gotta clean this up.